Hello viewers, Rule 86B, one of the most debated topics after it has been introduced. It is the talk among professionals, it is the talk among businessmen. You would have seen newspapers flooded with opinions on Rule 86B, and yes, a lot of criticism is there. A lot of people are dissatisfied with this particular rule. People are complaining, professionals are complaining. All right, all that is on one side, but if you can see the screen, CBIC has clarified. This is a tweet dated 26th December. So they have given certain misconceptions which is going around. They have addressed these misconceptions and they have compared it to what exactly is the reality. Although people are still dissatisfied and giving an opinion on this particular topic and saying it is right is very, very difficult, because yes, there are a lot of issues involved, and what is right or what is wrong is very difficult to say. But today's video and this particular video is only and only to give you the facts which the CBIC has provided us with. So we are just going through what CBIC is saying. If you can see, it is all these misconceptions have been addressed by CBIC. Let us see how far does it address our issues with respect to Rule 86B. Whether it does, whether it does not, would be clear once we are through with all the misconceptions and their reality as said and as specified by CBIC. Alright, so let's look at misconception number one that we as professionals are having. A large number of taxpayers would be affected by this rule. Alright, so this is one of the statements which people are saying, that it is there are a lot of people who are going to be affected by this rule, and a large number of taxpayers are going to be covered in this particular net. But what is the reality? CBIC says that the rule provides for various exemptions. Of course, this is something that we all know. If you have read the notification, you must be aware that a lot of exemptions have been provided in this particular rule to exclude a lot of people from the applicability of this rule. One of them is when the entity or the key managerial personnel have paid an income tax of rupees 1 lakh in two preceding financial years, the two immediately preceding financial years as compared to the year in which we are. So yes, that is one exemption. The other is when you have been sanctioned a refund or you have received a refund of rupees 1 lakh in the preceding financial year owing to inverted duty structure or export without payment of tax. So all these cases are there. So what is CBIC saying? That the rule provides for various exemptions like exporters, suppliers of goods of inverted duty structure, taxpayers having a footprint in the income tax database, etc. Okay, footprint काफी नहीं है, 1 lakh का टैक्स पे होना चाहिए. But since it is actually covering those people who have a turnover of more than rupees 50 lakh in a particular month, then we can safely assume that a large number of people would have paid at least 1 lakh income tax in the previous financial years. So it is saying that it would be applicable to less than 0.5% of the total taxpayer base of rupees 1.2 crores. Alright, so according to CBIC, 1.2 crores is the total taxpayer base that we have, out of which less than 0.5% are going to be covered by this particular rule. So yes, we can say that a large number of taxpayers would not be affected provided we rely on this particular explanation. Coming to misconception number 2, the requirement of cash payment of 1% liability will create huge burden on small businesses and will increase their working capital requirement. Yes, this was one point which was troubling a lot of professionals who were saying that, oh my god, we have to pay 1% liability with by cash. So let us look at the explanation which CBIC has given, the cash payment of 1% is to be calculated on the tax liability in a month and not the turnover of the month, which we were already aware of, right? We knew that it is the tax liability whose 1% is required to be paid. We weren't under the impression that it is the turnover. If it was, then hence it has been clarified that only 1% of the tax liability is required to be paid. In fact, it amounts to only 0.01% of the turnover. So they have taken an example that if a dealer has made a sale of rupees 1 crore of the goods whose tax rate is 12%, then tax liability would come only rupees 12,000. Alright, so that is misconception number 2, which has been clarified by CBIC. Misconception number 3, this rule adversely affects small and medium enterprises. What is the reality? The new provision which restricts the use of ITC for discharging output liability is applicable to registered person whose value of taxable supply, as we all know, exceeds rupees 50 lakhs in a particular month. That means whose annual turnover is more than 6 crores. It may or may not be true, because it might happen that you have an aggregate turnover of more than 50 lakhs in a month, but in the subsequent months that is not the case. Anyways, let's assume that uniformly you have made a turnover of 50 lakh rupees. In that case, the total turnover would be 6 crores. Therefore, the rule does not actually apply to small businesses and composition dealers. So you have to see whether you are falling in this category. Being a professional, you have to see whether your clients are falling in this category or not. Then a lot of people, according to this particular document, are going to be ruled out. Like it is specified that less than 0.5% of the total taxpayer base would be covered in this particular rule. So yes, we can say that a lot of people would be excluded. The next misconception: all the registered persons will be required to pay 1% cash liability. All registered persons. But since we have already read that there are a lot of exemptions and very few people are actually going to fall, a few taxpayers are going to fall in this particular net. So yes, of course, the reality is that this rule is applicable only to those registered persons. Again, it's the same thing which they are repeating, that it's applicable to these categories of people and these people are exempted. So yes, of course, we already know that all the registered persons will not be required to pay tax in cash. Alright, next one is misconception number 5. This rule adversely affects genuine taxpayers. Okay, so what is the reality? This is very, very interesting. This rule is only applicable. They have repeated it again. Alright, besides the registered persons falling. Okay, they just repeating the same thing again, that these other people on which it is applicable, these are the exemptions. Alright, no issues. After that, they're saying with these exemptions and conditions and precise targeting, the requirement of mandatory payment of at least 1% of the tax liability in cash would apply only to risky or suspicious taxpayers, and genuine taxpayers would remain excluded. Alright, we can believe it, but again, it is a little too early to judge whether all the risky and suspicious taxpayers would fall. But yes, if they have made it so, and probably based on all the records that they have of cases where fraud has taken place, where people have indulged into fake ITC, claiming fake ITC due to using false documents. So it might so happen that, considering all that information, whatever parameters they have set in this case are actually covering all the cases of all genuine cases have been excluded. We can safely assume it, but still there is at least one misconception, you can say, or there's at least one issue with respect to this particular rule which CBIC has not yet clarified, which is, what is the benefit out of it? If so many people have been excluded, have been removed from this particular rule, then who are the ones who are falling within the net? It's difficult to say that all the suspicious persons are covered herein. But yes, if that is what they're saying, then let's believe it, or let's at least try to understand that yes, these are the misconceptions in reality. However, If we talk about the rule in general, then of course there are certain issues with it. Let me again reiterate that law cannot be black or white. There has to be there are always gray areas, etc. So without giving any opinion on this particular topic, it's all about understanding what exactly has been said. Thank you so much.